welcome back to the show. I was just speaking to Adam. Then welcome back to Decoding Career. Sorry, it's a bit of a sloppy intro. I was just speaking to the person opposite me at the moment, Adam Becker, senior engineering manager at Coles Group. And I did a bit of research on you this morning. I was doing a bit of spying on you.
That sounds ominous.
Bit last minute.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm really looking forward to this one, and I can tell by I've only met you or known you for the past 10 minutes, but I can tell straight away that you are a people's person.
Yeah.
And I read in your bio, and I remember last speaking to you as well because you're quite a big across the mental health side of things and helping people, and I can tell it's a passion, but I can tell that it's generally you as well. So I think this episode, I'm really intrigued, and I'm sure the audience is as well, to find out more about your passion for people. Like you mentioned that you put people's well-being
Mm.
before anything else
Mm.
when you are leading a team, and I'm really curious to know a bit more about that as well, because when pressure's on, it's hard to be empathetic. It's hard to sort of provide empathy as well, be empathetic. Um, but yeah, look, that's probably the main thing that I'm looking forward to is learning a bit more about that. But I've probably jumped too far ahead there because I'm
Okay.
passionate about the show and reading what I've read as well. But so I've got too excited there, and I've not let you introduce yourself. But
That's all right.
Adam, if you want to jump in and give us a bit of an intro in terms of yourself and where you're working, and I think that'll probably be a good place for us to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's
All
nice to
good.
be here. And you're spot on with everything that you've said, and I think some of that's quite insightful considering you don't really know me. Uh, but yeah, I'm currently at Coles Group. I've been there a little over a year, senior engineering manager. I am responsible for our online fulfillment systems. So if you've ever placed an order with Coles online for home delivery or pickup or something like that, there are groups of teams that look after the website and the app and the e-commerce engine that sits behind all of that. But then the order will go to a system in your local supermarket, and the orders are actually picked there in the store. And so the systems that we use to kind of manage the picking process and get the orders ready for delivery, that's what my teams look after, those systems. Um, Across a variety of technologies that we can get into if that's interesting, but maybe it's not. Um, I'm now about 29 years in the industry, so I won't say my exact age, but as we were discussing before, I have 3 children, so uh, yeah, I'm feeling older, but I'm still in my 40s, just. Uh, I did go to university. I think that's one of the things that
Yeah.
we initially talked about. But I did it off campus in kind of a strange way. So I have worked since I was 18, and I've had a variety of different roles, and I'm happy to get into whatever seems interesting. But it's always been technology.
Mm.
Um, Interestingly, or perhaps not, but for me that was not the plan. It just kind of happened, and I've stuck with it. Um, I guess it means that I'm good at it to some degree because there's a pretty lengthy career there. But it probably was birthed out of a real interest as a young person, as a child, and then as a teenager. So I had kind of a natural interest and a natural aptitude in computers, and as a gamer, yes, but other things as well, kind of pulling systems apart and putting them back together. A little bit of programming, even as a kid and as a teenager. So, um, one of the things that I often talk about, sometimes when you start at a new organization, they ask you to say something interesting about yourself, or something that people wouldn't expect. Um, One of the things I trot out is that my first job ever was as a DJ at a roller skating rink, which usually gets a few laughs. But the other thing that that I tried out sometimes is that when I was a teenager, um, I mixed in the same circles as Julian Assange, because I was heavily involved in the dial-up bulletin board community. I
Right.
don't know if that's a technology that you're familiar with, but kind of pre-internet,
Yeah. Yeah.
people would set up computers in their houses with kind of banks of modems, and people could call in and kind of chat to each other, kind of pre MSN and pre all of that stuff. Yeah, so I had a real interest that has then just kind of moved into career, and I don't have as much of an interest anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I'm one of those interesting technology people that spends my 40 hours a week doing the job, and being really connected to the job and really passionate about what I'm doing, but I'm quite good at switching off and walking away. And I do game a bit in my spare time, but I'm not someone that is passionate necessarily about new technologies or things like that. I don't spend a lot of time researching or learning.
So how do you is that something that comes natural in terms of the switching off? Because that's definitely something I've struggled with over the years. And I know by speaking to a lot of leaders, whether you're engineering manager, head of engineering, CTO, especially if you're startup, scale up
Yeah,
business as
right.
well, I feel like there's a lot of stress there that a lot of people probably don't know about as well. Like, does it depend on the environment and the company that you're working at, whether they will let you switch off, or is it a skill that you feel like you've mastered to be able to do that no matter where you was working?
It's kind of both,
Okay.
I think. It is a skill. If you ask me how I developed it, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's something that I did out of necessity over time. Um, One of the things that we've briefly touched on as we've gotten to know each other is leadership and kind of my journey, my journey into leadership, and my early days of being a people leader. Um, it was hard to switch off,
Mm,
and there was so much to learn and so much to grow into and so much to do that I found it hard to kind of stop and get on with other stuff. Um, but the more that I've done it, the I think and kind of the more that I've been working and gotten older, the more that I see that separation as a real necessity, for my own balance, for my own mental health, kind of for the health of my family,
mm,
um, and yeah, and have really become quite good at it. I think I mean, I work from home almost exclusively now, and I have since the start of COVID. Although I've had a few roles in a few different places since then. Um, I think before COVID, when I was commuting like everyone else, I would use the commute time to just shut down the day, just to kind of think through the meetings that I'd had, the conversations that I'd had, the decisions we'd made, or maybe some of the decisions that weren't yet made that we were still thinking through, um, and just kind of put the day to bed so that when I got home, I could be home and I could be present. Um, and that doesn't mean that things don't happen. I mean, sometimes, in tech, there are other industries as well that are, far more critical, like medicine and emergency and things like that. But in tech, things go wrong, sometimes after hours. And so you might need to get online or get on a call and talk about something that's happened. Um, it doesn't happen too much where I am now because supermarkets kind of close. So, we're not exactly a 24/7 business. Even though you could place an order anytime, you could place an order at midnight if you wanted to, but no one's going to deal with that until about 5 a.m. So it's not like if something falls over in the middle of the night, we get called generally. But in other roles, that happens. So sometimes you do kind of have to dip out of your personal time and do some things. But I think I have just kind of naturally developed an ability to shut it off. The reason that I said it's two parts is that I guess, and the longer you have a career and the more experience you have, I think this gets a bit easier to do. But I've been quite selective about the roles that I choose to take, and obviously you need to be offered a role, but um, flexibility has become the kind of the number one thing for me, even before COVID.
It's,
Um,
it's, it's actually 94% Australians are saying it's 94% more important flexibility and well-being than it is career development.
right, so
I read something the other day.
that's a big shift,
Yeah.
I would think. I mean, I don't know any of the numbers, but I would think pre-COVID it would be different. Um, I think for all of the difficulties that we had with COVID, and the lockdowns and things, I think it exposed some, or it exposed maybe is not the wrong word, but revealed some different ways of working, different ways of living that people have really embraced. And they've seen that there is so much more to life than work. Um, and there's that kind of old saying, you work to live, not live to work. Some people do live to work, but uh, maybe that's part of why I'm able to leave it behind at the end of the day, because for me it is a means to an end. It's
Mm.
a lot of hours of my day, but really it's for the money, for to support my life and to support my family. It needs to be something that I enjoy.
Mm.
I don't want 8 hours of something that I hate, but um, everything that I value outside of it is really what drives it, is really what keeps me in the job.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Interesting. When did you discover that leading people was a passion of yours?
it's a good question. It kind of unfolded once I was given my first people leadership opportunity. I didn't really know that I wanted it. So I was working at Levi's, the jeans
11,
company.
11-year spell.
11 years, yeah, a long
Yeah.
time, yeah. Yeah, just I was given lots of opportunities over a long period of time, a handful of different roles. But my manager at the time, who had been an excellent leader, excellent mentor for me, someone I'm still friends with today, even though he lives in Adelaide, so I don't see him. But um, I could quite easily just call him and we'd definitely go out for dinner or
Yeah.
something like that. Um, he'd been there longer than that, 20
No
odd
way.
years, yeah. And I thought he'd be there forever. Um, but they were going through a process of centralising their executive into Melbourne, and he was based in Adelaide. So this is way back, early 2000s, I think. Oh, that's when I joined. I joined in, so this must have been, let's say mid that first decade in the 2000s. Um, but there'd been a lot of pressure on him to relocate to Melbourne, because they'd gradually just kind of got all the executive in Melbourne over time, and he was the last one, and he didn't want to move. And so they paid him out, and he left, and that kind of created this opportunity. So myself and one other person internally applied for the role, went through interview process, and I was successful. Um, and it was through leading that team that I started to see. And look, I had very little idea of what I was doing. I was kind of learning as I went, but it was through that opportunity of kind of the day to day, connecting with the people, hearing about their work, hearing about what they were struggling with, helping them solve problems, helping them unpack things, um, that I started to realize that I really liked it. Um, and it just kind of grew from there, So it wasn't a passion at the time. I think I've always liked people. I call myself a social introvert, because I really enjoy people, I enjoy chatting, going out, things like that. But um, I get tired and I need to withdraw.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
introvert part. Yeah. So
Yeah, I hear that quite a lot actually.
yeah, my favorite thing is to like be alone in a room with the lights out, watching a film or listening to music or something. Like that's how I recharge.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So it just unfolded. I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
and then I did that for about 4 years, and Levi's globally was not shrinking as a business, but they were just streamlining their leadership structures and things. And my role ended up being made redundant just 4 years later, and they started running IT for Australia and New Zealand out of Singapore. So I was no longer required, and then I picked up the role at World Vision, as the head of strategy and architecture, and I had a large team there, had about 20 people in my group, and probably there is where I started to realize it was becoming a passion. It was becoming something that I really cared about. And if you give people the space for it, they will talk about their life. If you treat them as humans rather than just workers, um, they feel comfortable kind of opening up about stuff that's
Mm.
going on, and you can be more sorry, more than just a workplace leader. You can be someone that they can talk to, and I've even over time, built friendships with people that I've led.
It's
Um,
just on that then,
yeah,
because I think this is probably important. Um, is there a line there though? Because I think when I would look at that is obviously you want to make people that you work with as comfortable as possible, but you're leading them, but then they turn into your friends. But where's the line, if you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do. I think there's a couple of lines for me. So there's one where there's still a job to be done, and I still have responsibilities, things that I'm accountable for.
Yeah,
They still have responsibilities, things they're accountable for, and you can't lose sight of that. So as much as we can go to the pub and have a laugh, or we can talk about what we did on the weekend, or we can talk about what's going on with our family, or whatever. Um, there's it can't just be that. It's you still have to have the things that we need to get done, and so I need to maintain my professional standards and help them maintain their professional standards, and make sure that it doesn't just fall into mateship, and that ultimately I might need to push them to get something done, or I might need to make a call that they don't necessarily like. That second one doesn't happen very often.
okay,
I'm a very collaborative leader, and I spend most of my time trying to create space for people to do a great job and to make their own decisions, um, and to coach them in that. Um, and I just get involved when I need to.
yeah,
Um, the second line is, I think because of the kind of person I am, and as this passion for people and leadership has developed over time, I've done some further study. So I've done some counselling study. I've done a psychology degree. There's kind of a natural counsellor bent to the way I operate, and I need this is the other line. I need to be careful with that, because I do, through I think my nature and through my
mm,
questioning, I do open up opportunity for people to talk about real stuff, kind of stuff beyond the job, stuff that's troubling them, that that is hard in their life. And I'm fine with that to a degree, but I need to know where the line is where I need to say, I need to refer you on now, because I'm not actually a counselor. I'm not actually a psychologist. That's not what this relationship is. And if you need professional help, I could do it, but that's not why I'm here. And that's not what our relationship is. And there haven't been many times, but there've been a few where I've had to say, can I give you someone's number? Can you, call someone who's a psychologist and actually talk to them about this stuff rather than me?
that just goes to show how much of a good leader you are, though, in terms of dealing with people as human beings, because people are feeling comfortable
Yeah.
speaking to you, they're opening up, and you won't even be, you won't be asking them questions deliberately. They'll just be
Ah,
coming out. Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it goes to show that because your nature is to care and to get and to help people, you probably just find yourself, and you probably think, okay, I need to probably step back here, which is whereas other people, leaders, will have to be the opposite. They'll have to try and be more like that, even
Yes.
though it's probably forced,
Yes.
and not have to worry about stepping back a bit, if you know what I mean. So I think that's interesting. And you did a bit of a gig in the recruitment
I
space
did.
as well, which was interesting. RXP, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So initially, she's become a good friend of mine now, but it was a little agency in Fitzroy, just off Brunswick Street, called 10 Collective, run by a woman named Georgie. And I was looking for work. So it was post World Vision. I was looking for like a head of technology, that sort of role. And she was running a recruitment agency. And so I connected with her. We had a really good chat on the phone. She's from Essex originally. English as well, because 92% of the recruiters in Australia are from England.
I
And
think
yeah,
that's being generous as well, 92%.
we hit it off really well, and just she didn't have anything immediately, and the agency really specialised in devs, engineers, particularly in the web space. That was absolutely what they focused on, and so she didn't really have anything relevant, but you know we made a connection, and I came in to see her. That was on the phone, and then I came in to see her a few months later just to catch up, and we had a coffee, and she said, I know you're looking for this kind of head of IT job, and that carries a certain pay packet and that sort of thing. I think you've got the makeup to be a good recruiter, and if you're good at it, you could make the same amount of money as what you're looking for. Do you want to have a think about it? So I did, and I ended up saying yes. And so I joined this, joined this agency of kind of eight people, I think. Had an absolute blast. It was a great group of people to work for.
You have good fun in
Good
recruitment
fun.
business.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Hard work,
Mm.
really hard work. I had a fresh appreciation for the job that I didn't have before. As having always been a candidate, I found business development incredibly hard. So I started with a blank desk, no clients. So I had to find my own clients, find my own roles, and the kind of the grind of the cold calling and trying to find those opportunities I found really difficult. Once I had an opportunity and kind of the account management side of things, quite good at.
You know what a good engineer
Right.
looks like.
Yeah. And then also finding candidates
Yeah.
was also reasonably good at that. So the one thing that really tripped me up in the role, just I think a little bit of, it's not something that I would have said about myself generally, but a little bit of perfectionism crept in.
Yeah.
And I tried to find the absolute best candidate for my client.
Yeah.
And so I just took too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took too long. And what I had to learn, it was too late by then, but what I had to learn was I needed to find the best available. Not necessarily the absolute best, but the best available. So to try and find that balance between someone great for the role within a timely manner was kind of the bit that was missing for me. But they were eventually acquired by RXP. And so I worked there for a little while. I ran a very small practice, I guess, web development practice, handful of clients, had to build a few small teams to do some work. And then I got a call to go to MYOB.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Who have a great reputation.
Great environment, yeah.
Yeah, and I jumped straight away.
So you started there as a lead engineer, this was quite an interesting transition, and then you transitioned to software development manager.
Yeah, so I actually went there as a development lead, I think the title was, which didn't have any hands-on responsibilities.
Okay.
So it was all kind of people and process.
Team lead sort of role. Yeah.
Which is where I'd kind of come to in my career. So more and more over time, I've become more distant from the keyboard and from tools. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. We're interviewing a bunch of grads from Monash for opportunities at Coles. And I need to know enough to be able to have critical conversations. So I need to stay up to date with technologies enough to know what people are talking about, and know what's applicable and suitable.
That's the biggest challenge with leaders in people leadership roles.
Yeah, because I'm not actually using the tools.
Yeah,
but it's important that I stay in touch enough to be mildly relevant when we're having conversations about architecture and solutions and things.
Saying that, what I'm finding with the clients that I'm working with, 80-90% of it is people, attitude, attributes,
100%.
Them as a person, and the 20% is actually the technical ability. So yeah, you probably need to brush up a bit more in terms of knowing what they're talking about, but people aren't hiring based on that. And you'd rather it your way round, than be getting too caught up in the technicalities and not actually being bothered about the person, because these engineers are smart. They know how to code. They can pick things up. They learn new things, and tech is changing so quick as well. So why does it matter if they're not an expert on a certain thing that you're building? So I would probably look at that as definitely more of a positive. But I hear what you're saying. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I hope that engineering candidates are realizing that more and more.
It's taking time.
Yeah.
And you know why they're not realizing it? A lot of them is because it's not naturally them.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's technical. but they realize that's comfortable. If you're going to get better, you need to look at the people
That's
side
right.
quicker than ever.
Absolutely.
But it falls on deaf ears sometimes because it's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then people start to feel uncomfortable. And
Yeah. And to a certain degree, it's harder to develop.
of course, yeah.
You can, you can get on Udemy or code.org, or you can go to a coding boot camp, or you can watch YouTube videos. There's lots of angles for improving your skills as an engineer, improving your technical skills, and that's probably true for a few careers. But the people side of things and your soft skills, as people call them, you develop through experience. You develop through your personal relationships, absolutely, but I think that you sharpen them by being employed and being part of a team and kind of rubbing up against people day to day, and having to collaborate and having to make decisions with others, decisions that you're not in control of, where you have a voice maybe, and maybe you don't have a voice, but you have a voice, but it's more of a collective that are taking things forward. I think finding the opportunities where you can do that is what helps develop the people skills. And some people find that easier than others. I'm someone that it's come to really naturally over time. But I know a lot of people who would really prefer just to put their headphones on and punch out some code. And it's harder for them to develop that other skill set. But you're spot on. Like when I'm recruiting, which is kind of constantly at Coles, it is that softer skill. It is that empathy, people skills, communication, collaboration. They're the things that I'm looking for. Also problem solving, also technical aptitude, but not necessarily a specific stack. And as long as the person can demonstrate that they have the ability to pick up things, you're right. You can learn the tech skills. It's the other stuff that's a bit harder to learn.
Yeah, and EQ,
Yeah,
I think is massive. This day and age as well, because especially because a lot of the time as well, mid-levels, seniors, especially seniors, how they articulate a problem and knowing why they're solving a certain problem and what it's doing for the business is more important than ever.
Yep.
Rather than just as a mid-level, you sort of put your head down and just get stuff done.
Yeah.
But as you sort of climb the ranks, you need to understand the business logic behind it. But I had an interesting conversation recently, and one of the interview questions is, on your last project that you've been working on for the past year, what do you regret about that? And I think that question opens up whether they can understand that they've made mistakes, whether they can bring them up and say that they've learned from them, because it's all about failures. And I think that was quite interesting, because if someone replies, no regrets, I think there could be a red flag there in terms of ego, or can I work with this person? Why isn't he being genuine, or she being genuine with me?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I always ask that question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I want to know that. Tell me about a mistake you've made.
Yeah.
That was public, not something that you could just hide. How did you work through it? What did you learn from it?
And how did you own it, sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, the other big one for me is, tell me about a time you've had a difficulty in a relationship at work. You've had a conflict of opinion, or you've had an argument with someone. How did you find a way forward? How did you repair the relationship? That's the other thing I want to know.
That's a tough one, isn't it? Hopefully there's not a few engineers that are listening that you're interviewing with that are going to have a lot of prep for the next
okay.
step.
That's good.
Good. No, 100%.
That's good.
Obviously, with your side of things, I think it's been quite interesting, because obviously you've gone definitely down that, really strong down that people side.
Yeah.
For anyone else that's really passionate about people and leading and being more on that side, you mentioned that you're having challenges with, not challenges, but you face difficulties with keeping up to the latest trends, the latest tech. What advice would you give to someone that is going down the same direction as you, that this is probably going to start creeping up in their life as well? Is there anything that you're doing to help with that? Is there anything that you've done in the past?
To be honest, I'm not extremely proactive with it.
Okay.
I'm happy to be honest about that. I tend to do it on demand.
Okay.
So as we're moving into a particular type of technology or moving into solving a problem that's in a certain sphere, that's when I'll do my research. So I'm not um, I'm not a big podcast person, although I will be checking yours out after this. But I'm just not really.
Yeah.
I starting to feel a little bit like a luddite with tech, just a little bit. Like I'm not a big podcast person. Uh, I'm not that excited by AI. Like I'm feeling. It sounds ridiculous because I'm not 50 yet, but I'm just feeling my age a little bit in that I'm not that keen on the latest stuff. Anyway, that wasn't your question. Um, I do it on demand. So
Yeah.
if we're going a certain way, then I will sink myself into research. So I'll go and watch some YouTube videos. I'll go and read blogs. I might reach out to a few friends in the industry who are more technical than me and who have stayed a bit more on the technical track, and have a chat with them about what it is that we're starting to look at, and just kind of get their input. Um, those are the avenues that I'll take usually, um, just to inform myself enough. Um, I still leave it to the experts in the room, really, to make the decision, and I really just try to guide the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just try to kind of coach it along. But
So support of your team members.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I try to surround myself with people that um, know more than me and are better at the technical side of things
And
than
then you
me.
can just focus on what comes natural to you
Yeah,
then.
yeah, and I focus on the team building
Yeah.
and setting up good systems of work and good processes. Um, giving people a great environment to work in. Psychological safety has started to become a bit of a catchphrase, and that's something that I think I've done naturally for a long time, and has had a name kind of in the last decade. But creating great environments for teams and for people, um, opportunities for people to learn and develop and grow. I'm really passionate about getting people to the next stage in their career, and have helped a lot of people with their professional development to be promoted in organizations that I'm a part of, or to go and get a more senior role somewhere else. Um, so yeah, I focus there, and I let the experts make decisions just with the appropriate level of kind of business leadership.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And in terms of the career paths then, because that sounds like it's a passion of yours. Um, I've had a few conversations over the past year, and there's a few interesting things that came up. One was that if you're knocking on the door for the promotion, you should already be doing the job.
Yep.
You shouldn't be knocking on the door saying, "Hey, I deserve a promotion here," which I think sinks in slightly to what you was talking about with the career development. How do you effectively set someone up for success? And do you think that's true where in case where someone should already be doing the role before they even thinking about that they're getting called that as a title or responsibilities,
Yeah, I
etc.?
think to a certain degree. So I'll say kind of two things. So one is that the way that I work with people to get to the next step is I look at where they are now and the competencies and expectations of that role, and how well they're fulfilling those, and are they kind of close to 100% of the expectations for their current role, and then look at what the next step is in the career ladder and the expectations of that role, and then work out how to close the gap. So, what skills do you not have now? What competencies do you not have now? What are the things that you need to learn? What are the things that you need to demonstrate, and it be obvious that you are capable of doing? Um, and then I find opportunities for them to demonstrate those things. So, a little bit of work outside of their day to day, get them involved in a project or a program of work that either gives them an opportunity to learn those skills or to show that they already have them. Maybe something cross functional, something outside of our space, something somewhere else in the business. Um, just give them opportunity to stretch and give them opportunity to shine, and for more people outside of their immediate team to see what they're capable of. make that kind of public and known. So yeah, and I think what I was saying plays into
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
So they're not necessarily doing the job, but they are showing that they're completely capable, or at
yeah, yeah,
least capable of an entry level into that job. Because there's also, like, within each, if you think about an engineer, maybe the career ladder looks like associate, mid-level, senior, principal, staff, something like that. Within all of those, there are still kind of tiers, and most organizations will have banding around salary and things like that. And so if you are a mid-level or a really strong senior and you are promoted, you'd probably be promoted to like a low tier of a principal in terms of your pay band and also the expectations of your competency, because you wouldn't be expected to go from senior to principal and be smashing it as a principal.
mm,
There'd still be areas of growth. So yeah, you should be demonstrating that you're capable, but not necessarily fully doing the role.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. You've obviously you've done the years now as a people leader, and you've done it in different environments as well,
Yeah.
which I think is really interesting because you'd have been dealing with different types of people. What's probably the biggest no go or the biggest sort of howler, should you call it, where you've done something as a leader and you thought, you know what, that's probably my biggest mistake I've made, and I wouldn't.
You put my own interview question back on me.
No, I didn't mean to.
Biggest mistake.
I didn't mean to. But someone's got to give it. Someone's got to give it back to you because the candidates aren't going to do it.
No, they're not. It's true. It's true. All right. Biggest mistake as a people leader. Look, not one big thing isn't coming to me, but I'll keep thinking about it. When I was less experienced as a people leader, um, I was certainly not, perhaps not as empathetic and not as not as collaborative and kind of supportive of people as I am now. I still really liked people, and I was kind and nice to people, but I was more directive. There's this phrasing around leadership, command and control style. I think it probably has its roots in the armed forces of some sort, but I think that was probably initially a bit more my bent. That I needed to feel like I had my arms around everything that was within my patch or within my area of responsibility, and to make sure that things were happening the way that they should, I was more directive.
Yeah, yeah,
You do this, you do that. This needs to be done by this date. Just, and probably still in a fairly friendly way, but just really on top of things and really on top of people, and kind of pushing them to deliver and to get things done within a certain time. And over time, I've learned people don't really like that, and I don't think I was micromanager. I've experienced that from other leaders towards me. I don't think I was quite at that level, but I was erring in that direction. And I've had some good coaches of me over the years who highlighted that sort of failing, I guess, or negative side of my leadership, and so that's something that I had to grow out of, and move to the more collaborative, supportive coaching, you know, treating people like adults. And, they signed up to do a job and to have a certain level of responsibility. Just about everyone comes to work to do a good job, with that attitude. And so what I try to do now is get out of their way. And as I talked about before, create an environment for them to do a great job and trust them to do what they've been employed to do, what they're paid to do, not what I've told them. They don't come to work to have someone tell them what to do. Engineers like to solve problems. They come to work to solve problems and be given the space to do that. And so that's what I do.
yeah.
And I intervene if I need to, but generally I don't need to.
I know we've already touched on this, but I'd like to sort of touch on it again because we had over 1,400 listeners last week.
Wow.
So there's a lot of engineers that are tuning into the show, which is great. Um, and I think one of the biggest things that a lot of engineers are asking me is, what are people looking for in terms of my skill set at the moment? I know we've briefly touched on it, but
Yeah.
I think it would be good to hear it again from yourself a bit more of a direct question. But um, what in your opinion, what separates an average engineer to an exceptional engineer that you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Engineers that you come off the interview and you go higher, yeah, them types of engineers. What are they doing differently?
I think for me, they demonstrate that they're much more than the code. Um, I've said I've said it a few times recently because I've been on calls with grads through the Monash thing and through some other avenues. The best engineers that I've come across in my career, and most of them far better than I ever was when I was on the tools, they spend more time thinking about the problem than coding. And if I get that sense from a conversation that they have great problem solving capabilities, they're great at understanding the environment and the landscape, and you talked about earlier delivering what the business needs. If they can talk about that in an interview and their experiences with that and the ways that they've delivered for the organization, that's a pretty big win for me, because the ones that are just focused on the code and what they built, they're probably technically fantastic, but they're missing potentially. It might just not shine in the interview, but they're potentially missing a whole area of skill set that's critical to being a great asset for an organization, and that is, you solve problems with code. It's not about the code. It's about the problem that you're solving. It's about what you're doing for the business. So that's part of it. And then the other part is how well they're able to articulate things.
Mm.
I really tend to, when I'm interviewing, I tend to drill down into what what people's experience have been working in a team and talking to others and sharing ideas and hearing other people's ideas and being open to solving problems in ways that are different to the way they thought maybe the problem should be
Is this
solved.
where the argument question comes in then?
It does. It
Yeah,
often comes in there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There was, I certainly can't claim credit for it, but there was a saying when I worked at MYOB, strong opinions loosely held. And sometimes people would need to be reminded that that's what we wanted in the culture. We want people to have strong opinions. We want them to know the technology and to know what works and to know what's relevant, but we want them to hold them loosely because we want a culture that's a community of people who are working together to find the best solution for the business problem.
Yeah.
And so people's ability to kind of let go of their point of view when someone presents a better argument is really important.
Yeah. No, interesting. Great answer.
Thanks.
You knew that was coming, that question, didn't
Nah.
you? Well, look, Matt, I think there's definitely been a really interesting conversation, and in terms of a people leader, you're definitely one of the most passionate but empathetic leaders I've met. But
Thank you.
sort of laid back as well. Like you
Yeah.
just take it in your stride. You don't take yourself too seriously.
I-
So I think I can imagine someone that was working underneath you. They'd have a lot of space. They'd be able to do the job. There's obviously a line, but they'll also be able to talk to you about certain things that are going on in their life.
Mm,
As if to say, I didn't get this done today. I had a few things going on, but get it done
great.
tomorrow. You'd be like, yeah, no problem
No problem.
as long as it's done. So I think there's a lot of value there. And I think it's really
There's a lot.
interesting.
Thank you. That there's actually a lot of material that's come out, certainly in the last 5 years, but the last decade, around um, kind of people's engagement at work and people's happiness at work and things like that. And I feel, and it's supported by a lot of literature, but I feel that if people are treated like humans, and if you acknowledge that they are so much more than their job, they have family, they have friends, they have financial responsibilities, they have other interests, um, and just give them the freedom to do what they need to do, as long as they get the job done, they love it. It's really engaging for people to just be given that freedom to be responsible. Um, I've said for years now to people that I hire, I don't really care how many hours you work. I care about you getting the outcome, what it is that we need to do. As long as we get that done, and the business is happy and we deliver what we need to, I don't care how many hours you work.
Yeah.
I care if you work too many. I don't want to hear that you're working 60 hours.
But if you're working too many, that's a red flag in terms of the engine, like.
Well, it could. I think I know where you're going. It could be one or the other.
Yeah,
you know, it could be the person being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
It could be there's too much ask on them.
Yeah.
Or a third. It could be that there are people in the team that aren't pulling their weight, and so it's falling on the stars of the team to deliver. There's a few angles there where it could be bad. So when I say I don't care how many hours, I guess what I'm trying to convey with that is I'm not interested in you clocking in and clocking out.
No.
And telling me your every move. I trust you to get the work done.
Yeah.
And if you've got medical appointments, you're seeing a psychologist, you got to take your kids to school, all that stuff.
And you're fully remote setup as well, aren't you? So I think you have to be.
Yeah.
If you try to micromanage when people are working from home,
exactly.
What's the point?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, interesting. Anything? I don't normally ask this question at the end, but is there anything that you'd like to add in terms of like this topic in general, helping people transition, or any engineers that are listening that want to go down that people leadership route?
Other than everything that we've talked about today, I think putting your hand up for opportunities is the way to go, and being really open to what that opportunity might be. Don't get fixated on a stack or on a type of technology or something like that. You become infinitely more employable the more open you are, the more tech that you learn, the more of an engineer you are. We talk about often in the industry we talk about engineers are people who solve problems with code, and I think I said that something similar earlier. But a really good engineer should be able to pick up pretty much any platform, any stack, given enough time to ramp up. So you shouldn't feel like you need to know everything. You need to have the ability to learn anything that's put in front of you, and demonstrate that you have the aptitude and curiosity to pick that up and learn it as you go. But yeah, being open to opportunity and volunteering for things to kind of stretch yourself out of your comfort zone is the way to get there.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Yeah, really appreciate it, and I'm hoping the listeners that have tuned in today have heard what Adam's got to say, especially engineers that are listening. We're giving you all the answers of like all you've got to do is go away and implement. But been an absolute pleasure. So thanks for coming on the show, and hopefully Liverpool win the league for you.
That'd be amazing. Like you said before we started, it's ours to lose.
That's it.
So yeah, thanks, Sam.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.